Okay, so welcome everybody. So today's class is just we're going to go again over the slides from yesterday, a little bit more in depth, and I'm going to give you examples of how you can use the server to construct your own backend and communicate with your client. We can make some examples about it. So as I said, it's going to be fairly straightforward from what we did on the class and following the slides. Keep in mind that whatever I am going to do today is things you will have to do on the second assignment. So it's very important that you feel confident doing what I'm going to do. And if there's any problems that you face, it's things that you don't understand, stop me, drop the questions on the chat. Otherwise, when the time comes that you have to code these things, it could be a little bit stressful for you. Okay, so yesterday we were talking that you can execute JavaScript from the console, from a desktop, from an outside of the browser, and to do that you need to have a terminal. So for those of you who are on Windows, you can open the classical Windows terminal, which is this one, which is horrible. It's not very helpful. The commands are ugly, and I hate it. I try not to use it, but sometimes I have to use it. But if you are on the Windows 10 or Windows 11, remember that current Windows comes with something called the WSL, which is Windows subsystem of Linux. And if you install that, you have a tiny Linux version inside your Windows, which works super well because it's a full Ubuntu distro inside your computer. And if you do it, I have it installed in my computer. It's very easy to install. Then this is a terminal of Linux. You can see here the icon of Linux, and that means that from here you will have all the commands that you will have if you were running any Linux machine. If you're in Mac, you don't have to worry because Mac already has it's based on Unix, which is is almost the same as Linux, and that means that you can launch the same commands I'm going to launch today. But if you're in Windows and trying to use the regular command shell, Windows commands are not exactly the same. So that's why I always go to Linux version. Okay, cool. So now we have the terminal. We can check if we have Node installed. We do have Node installed in this machine, version 18, which is not the latest. I think the latest is 21. And the next thing you can do from a terminal, which we are going to do a lot, is connect to another terminal. So in this case, you want to connect to another terminal, you type SSH. SSH is the protocol that we use to communicate with another machine, and then you have to tell which machine it is. So let's go and say it's ECV ethic upf.edu. If you do that now, you still don't have an account, so you won't be able to join. So the thing is, I'm going to send an email of how you have to request access to this server, and you will have to fill like 3 or 4 questions, and then I will give you access to the server. So for now, I can click. Then it brings me this message the first time. It says, you never have been here on this server. Are you sure you trust this server? And to know if you trust the server is giving me information about the public key. And if I say yes, next time I connect, it will check if the key is the same, and if the key is the same, it won't tell me anything like, hey, be careful. So I say yes, I trust this one. So now it's the key has been permanently added to this operating system. So that means that from now on, when I connect, he knows I'm in the right server. But if in the future they change the key, he may think that there's some kind of attack in the middle, and it will try to block it. So anyway, I'm trying to connect now. It's asking me for a password, and I failed it because it's asking me for a password for a user called Tamat. Tamat is the username I have in my computer, and because of that, it's trying to connect with that username. I didn't want to connect with that username, so when you want to connect to another machine, a Linux machine, and you want to specify your username, you can type the username first and then type the @ symbol. That means I want to connect to this server using this username. If I do that now it's going to ask me for the password for my username, which is this one. And now I can type my password, and boom, I'm connected. So now I'm not in my machine, I'm in another machine, and I can type to see if Node works, and Node works. You can see that the version on the server is version 16, not 18. There's a reason for that. It's because there's something weird with the 18 version that doesn't work on this machine. Maybe it's because it's very old, the Ubuntu I have installed in this machine. So, and I don't want to update the Ubuntu now because maybe I break something. So we will see. If I can update it, I will update it. Otherwise, we will work with the 16. I say this because maybe some of the libraries you're going to use for the assignments are too modern and they will require a newer version of Node.js. If that's the case, be careful because they won't work. But for now, let's go with the 16, okay? So, cool. And finally, if you don't want to use the Windows subsystem Linux, but you want to connect to another server, there's a famous application called Putty that you can download for free. It's this application here, and you can specify different connections. And if you double click to the connection, you are going to connect to that machine, okay? Just to show you how it works. So I'm going to open again. So here you can say I want to connect to any machine, in this case ECV ethic upf.edu, which is the name of the machine. Remember that this is the domain of the machine. And you can specify which protocol do you want to use to connect. I'm going to use SSH. And then you can save it to later use. And that's mostly it. With this, you already are telling how to connect. When I click open, it's going to open a window and ask me for the login. So I can say it's professor and the password. Okay, so there's two ways to connect. You can use directly Putty to connect to another machine, or you can connect first to your Linux machine and from there jump to the other machine. Remember that in Linux you can jump from one machine to another if you want to. I mean, there's no limitations. And so it's always nice because sometimes you want to execute something on one machine or on another machine, then you can jump from one to other. There's even a solution that execute commands not in your machine, but in another machine if you want to. So that's super nice. Okay. And also, there's no limitation of how many accounts you can have at the same time running. Like for instance, I'm connected now to the server here. So like if I type ls, you can see there's files here. And if I go here and I'm connected here on the same machine, you can see I can have both connections simultaneously. Okay, and this is usually common to have multiple connections, maybe because you want to run different things at the same time, and then you don't want to have to be switching from one screen to another screen, as I was doing yesterday with the command screen. So you can have both of them open at the same time. Okay, so I'm going to go here, and I can show you if it says who. It tells you how many people is connected to the machine right now, and there's 2 times connected this professor account. And by the way, these things I think is an account that comes from the administration system. So if I connect again, like I don't know, I create a new connection again to this machine. I'm going to do it again. So I'm connected again now. You can see that now if I ask who's in the system now, there's 3 versions of me connected here, okay? And there's even the option that you can talk with each other if you wanted to. There's a command to send messages between people connected to the same machine at the same time, but we're not going to do that today. Okay, so for now, I'm going to just keep working from the Linux inside Linux inside Windows prompt, because I think it's the best one to work with. And also because if in any moment I want to exit and go to my computer, I can exit. And now I'm in my computer. This PC17 is my computer now. So whenever I execute now, it's executing my computer, but I can enter in any moment to my server and say something like this. Do whatever you want to. Okay, cool. So I want to clarify that it's nice to have a way to jump from one machine to another, do whatever you want to. Super helpful and super useful. Cool. More things. Also, if you have to type a lot of commands all the time, there's tricks to do that. So for instance, if I want to connect to this machine several times, I can make an alias of this. I can show it to you. For instance, well, there's many tricks in Linux. It's good to know them, but anyway, every user has a root folder. Like if you type cd, enter, you go to your root folder or whatever. For instance, if I'm in, I don't know, this repos folder and I type cd, it goes back to my home folder. Or even if I'm in some subsystem, whatever, here, if I type cd, always goes to your home folder. Okay, this is very nice because sometimes you get lost and you want to go to the very beginning. And it's easy to know that you're in your home folder because this character, this strange tilde, it means that you are in your home folder. So this is your personal folder. Whatever you have here is like your mis documentos in your machine. Okay, another thing that happened now I got this error from the putty machine the window had open, and this is the error you get when the other side closes the connection. And it is in putty. I'm going to tell you because it's maybe if you use putty on Windows, it will happen to you sometimes. When you connect, okay, I'm going to connect to, I don't know, the ECV. Is if you go here to connection, you can specify if the seconds of inactivity. If you put 0, it's turned off. But I'm going to put 5 or no, 2 maybe. This means that every time it tries to connect, 1 second, I'm going to load this one to be sure it's 5. Yeah, I'm going to save it now. Okay, that means that every 5 seconds, this window will send, or this client will send messages like pings to the server. And I have to do this because some servers, if they don't see any message coming from you for a while, they think that you just disconnected and or your computer crashed or something, and they disconnect you. So to avoid that, it's good to ping every 5 seconds to the server. So I'm going to have this open, and now it won't close my connection even if I stay too much time idle. Okay, which is what happened last time. Okay. So what I want to tell you is this is your personal folder, and your personal folder, if I type ls, there are some, and in my case I have some folders here for different projects, but if you type ls -a, you will see more files. -a is also show me the hidden files. In Linux, usually the hidden files start with a dot to tell you this file is hidden. Other people won't be able to see unless they wanted to see it. And there's many projects here, but I wanted to show you there is one specific file that is very important, which is the bash rc. So I'm going to edit. To edit files, there's many different text editors on Linux. The most important ones are Emacs, Vim, and Nano. And they are very hard to use at the very beginning. So find the one that you feel more comfortable. I hate Emacs. I cannot edit anything in Emacs. I can edit in Vim, although I have to say that editing in Vim is super annoying. And the most close to an editor that you may want to use is Nano. So let's try Nano. So it's more classical editor. And here, there's a lot of commands that you don't have to understand. The important of this file is the alias thing. This command, by the way, gets executed when you join the first time on a shell, and it's the like startup script. And it's good to put things here because then whatever you put here is going to be executed every time you join. And I'm going to have here something like, for instance, a command called ECV. And this command is going to be, hey, can you connect to the ecv-ethic.upf.edu? Okay, so now every time I type ECV on my console, it's going to launch this command for me. So now I can save and exit. To save is Control S, and to exit is Control X. So now, if I type ECV, it won't do anything. This command doesn't exist, but that's because this script gets executed when you start the terminal, but I haven't started. So I have two options. Or I close it and I open it again, and then it will work. If I close this window and open it again, or there's another one which is a little bit more strange, which you have to type this, which means re-execute this file. And now if I type ECV, boom, it's trying to connect to my server. It's good to have some aliases to go fast when you have several commands that you use every day and you want to just avoid to have to type them every time. Even I can add the password on the SSH command, and that would mean that I even don't have to type the password if I wanted to. The problem is that then somebody hacks my computer and finds that file, they will know my password, which is kind of ugly to write passwords in plain text in any file, so I'm going to skip that part. Okay. So we have access to this server, and remember that this server is the same server that you have if you go to the ECV blah, blah, blah. So 1 second, let me show you. So if I go here to ECV, yes, this one over here. Okay, this server that is running here is this machine I'm connected now, the ECV SAP. Okay, and we can see this because if we go to the show me all the commands here, and we grep only the ones that have Apache. Sorry, I have to put -aux, otherwise it will only show me some of the commands. Sorry, now. You will see that there is Apache 2 is running, and remember Apache is the HTTP server that I have installed in this machine. It's a software that helps you to like, if you have a lot of files, to say, okay, serve these files when somebody do some HTTP request to this server, okay? If I kill it, then if I stop this process, then when I try to go to this address, it won't do anything on the browser. It doesn't mean the server is broken or closed, it's just that nobody's listening on port 80, okay? Which it may make sense in some situations, but for now I don't want to stop it. So let's go back to the slides. And the next thing important about the slides, besides that we have to get very comfortable working on JavaScript on a terminal, on a bash, is that we want to be able to launch our own application. So let's start by this tiny HTTP server as we did yesterday. So we can copy this code. Okay, so we can try to run this code locally on my machine, or we can try to run the code on the remote server, okay? If we want to do it locally on my machine, I can exit the server. So now I'm in my machine, and then I can edit the files, and do whatever I want to. So here, for instance, I don't know if there's an ECV folder. I created if there was none. And now, if I want to start my code editor, I can code dot, and this will open Visual Studio Code if you have it installed in your machine. Which is nice because it opens here, and then I can create a file here. I don't know, main.js, for instance, and type the code here, save it. And another cool feature about if you use VS Code is if in any moment you need a terminal to execute code on this folder. Imagine I don't have this terminal here. If you need a fast terminal, you press Ctrl J, it opens a terminal for you. So you can see now I have a terminal here inside Visual Studio Code, which is super handy because sometimes you want to run a command to test something, and when you don't need it anymore, Ctrl J again, and it disappears. Super handy. But this works because the files editor and the files are stored locally on my machine. If I was editing remote files, this won't work, okay? So, because there is an option to open remote files, but I don't remember how to do it. Because there's an extension here in this bar. You have here the bottom extensions, and there's one for FTP, which is this one, and I don't know if it's installed or not. I'm going to try to see if it installs or not, because I remember I installed it and there was a problem. So yes, now it's installed. This says it's deprecated. Use this other one instead, which is weird because it looks almost the same. So I'm going to install this one. Okay, cool. It's enabled, blah, blah, blah. So, okay, I hope I didn't break anything because I haven't done this much stuff. But nice thing now is that if suppose that you go here, there was a place, I don't remember. I will check it out for another day. But there's a way that you can open files that are in another server. So they explain it here how to do it. And I say this because some people may want to use Visual Code remotely. Although there is a problem if you do that. The main problem, as I was saying the other day, is that it would take a lot of resources from the server. So if many of you do this at the same time, the server will run super bad. So be careful. So anyway, I have this script run, in my local machine, so I can execute it. So I can come here and say node main, okay? And it executes, and I can see it's server ready. Even my Visual Studio Code detected that there's somebody running on this port. Sorry, you cannot see it because I have my, so you won't be able to see it now. So it says there is somebody listening on this port, so maybe you want to open that in the browser. As you can open, and it will just automatically open it. And I can see that this works because I have this message here that says, okay, which is exactly what I had here. So if I, instead of say, okay, I type a lot of ampersand and save it, if I reload, you won't see any changes because the application is still running the old code, which is this one. So I'm going to stop it and launch it again. If you type arrow up, it goes to last command, enter, and now if I reload it, now it works, it updates. So be careful when you are coding. Every time you modify things, you have to stop and launch again, otherwise it won't work. Okay, there are some tricks that you can do. There is a system that where if you modify the code, it will automatically reload the code on Node, but I don't use it, and I don't remember how it works. And there's even an option that when you modify the code, it will automatically reload the website for you. So if you find it, search it, you will find it because a lot of people use these kind of solutions. And the important thing now for me is that we read this code and we understand what it does. Okay, so always, because anonymous function sometimes is very annoying for some of you, I'm going to remove it as an anonymous function. I'm going to put it here, like on request. Okay, so it's exactly the same as I had before, exactly the same, but a little more cleaner. Okay, so what we have now is we are creating we have a function, but we are not executing it now, and then we are creating a server, a HTTP server, And if there's any HTTP request, call this callback. Okay, this callback is not only going to be like notify it, it's also the function in charge of responding that callback. If you don't respond this callback from here, the other person won't receive anything and he will stay waiting for the response. So be careful when you do something like that. And once we have created the server, we have to tell, okay, start listening onto this port. And you can even pass, if you want another callback, I'm going to put it also outside so it's easy for you to see it. This callback is going on start. So we're going to put it here, and this is going to be called once the server knows that everything went well. There was no problem, everything launched, so I can save now, go back to the console, launch it. You see it's exactly the same. If I go here and I reload it, sorry, not this one, and it's still, I have a website here. By any reasons, I close the process, I go back and reload, then the browser will try to load, it won't find anything, and it will say, hey, there's nobody listening here. So I'm going to launch it again. But before that, I can show you that if I didn't respond with OK, I'm going to comment this line, save, and I'm going to launch it again, the server. So now if I request here, you will see that it states, I mean, I received the request. I can show it to you if I put here some, I don't know, Javi, intro. You can see here on the console, I received the request, so it's executing, but you can see how here it stays waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And there was a moment when the browser said, hey, I've been waiting for 10 seconds and nobody answered anything. I understand that this request has been lost. So timeout, and it will show you the error. So always when we make a request, we need to respond it somehow. So I'm going to save now. And now you can see if I reload, and sorry, I have to save it and relaunch the application. And now if I reload, boom, you have here, it works, okay? So simple and useful when you work with HTTP. Okay, but the problem here is that if I want to request any file from my system, I will have to code all the things to resolve those things. And coding that is kind of annoying. So next thing on the slides is, hey, don't code your HTTP server from scratch, which is a little bit annoying. So I will jump to another slide, sorry, which is this one, which is Express. So let's copy this code and put it here. Okay, so boom, we have another function. It calls from something called folder called public, which we don't have, so we better have a folder called public, new folder here called public, because this is the folder that every time they request a file, it would check if this file exists on this folder. So let's save it. You can see, by the way, that the port has changed. Now it's port 3000, okay, because this by default it puts a new one. And then I'm going to launch the application, close the application, launch it again, and boom, I get this error. Okay, this is a common error that says, hey, I saw that you are requesting something called Express, and it's true, I am recording it from here, but it's I cannot find that Express thing. So then we should do the things properly, which is, first of all, we're going to start a new project here, sorry, with npm init. Okay, so this is going to create a project. You can even put some name here, who created, which is the version, where there is a Git repo, yes, everything. So now by doing this, I have the package JSON here, which is nice because it already creates something for you. And even you can put the scripts here. Okay, so well, I didn't want to run this, but what the heck? Okay, well, anyway, I clicked this play button. I didn't know what it does. This button is going to try to launch the application, and because it detects there's an application here on this file, and it tells you want to execute it, but I didn't want to execute it. Okay, so and the next thing now, because we have created the package JSON, you can see that here there's no dependencies. There's not a single line that says dependencies. But if I say, hey, by the way, I need to install, to make this work, I need to install Express. You type enter. It's going to fetch for the repo, install it. You can see now the JSON has changed. It says, hey, it has dependencies, this folder, and it's Express, okay? And it also creates the node modules and downloaded Express. And boom, you can see that downloading Express is huge, okay? So I'm going to do something else. I can remove now Express if I wanted to. I can go to the node modules. Here you can see all the modules that it has installed just by installing one, which is not so big. Most of them are very tiny, but still, I don't like it. So I'm going to destroy all these node modules because I don't want it. So now all the modules are gone. You can see RM is for remove things. RF is recursively because I want to remove folders inside folders, and F is to force, so it's not going to ask me if I wanted to yes or not for every file. So it's very dangerous to type RF because it means remove everything from here, and if you put the wrong folder, it's going to destroy your system, but be careful with that. And I removed everything inside Node modules, so everything is gone. And obviously, if I try to launch my application again, the module is gone, okay? But I'm going to do something else. I'm going to npm install the module, but I'm going to type /g express, okay? So it's going to install it, okay? And if I go to Node, at least there's no Node modules now. But if I run now this, it doesn't work. Boom. That's weird. It's because what I did was install it in the global scope. This /g means not installed in this folder, but it's installed in the global repo that is on the operative system, so that you don't have to install it every time. Maybe with this one, it was done in the previous one like this one. So node modules created. No, well anyway, probably I have some rights. This could happen that it's installed on the system, but the system, I don't have rights to write on the system from this user, and so maybe it's broken. I'm going to try again just to be sure that it's not that. So if I launch the application, it doesn't find Node. I'm going to install it globally with this, but I'm going to type sudo because that means force it to install it even if you don't have rights. Okay, and now let's see. There's no Node modules and launch the application. Nah, it doesn't work. Okay, I don't know. Something strange happened on Windows systems, but for now I can install it locally, which is not ideal. But on the server, you shouldn't. I would recommend you to check always if you already have that installed on the system, because probably it's already installed. All the Express and things we're going to use, they come already on here. So I launch this one. I have it installed again, and now if I go ls, the Node modules here. So ready to be used, and now I can launch my application. Boom, it's releasing on port 3000. You can see that Visual Studio Code detected there's somebody listening on port 3000. Do you want to go there? Yes, let's go there. And I have a hello world here. Okay, cool. Let's go to check the code now, because now it's a little bit more clear. So we are creating Express application, which is internally is going to create the HTTP server for us. And then the second thing we're telling, if somebody requests any file, search it on the public folder. And because the public folder now is empty, let's create a file here like foo.txt, and in foo.txt from hello from foo. Cool, we can save it. And now if we go back to our application here, and we can try it, we type /foo.txt, hello from foo. But if I type something that doesn't exist, like foo, it will say, sorry, couldn't find anything called foo. Okay, so cool, because we have a way to access the server and request things from a folder. So here in this public folder, we can store all the images, all the text files, HTML, CSS, JavaScripts that should be executed on the client side, not on the server side. Be careful with that, because remember that now there will be code that is executed on the client and code that is executed on the server. So you have to keep those things separately. Okay, so now we have a way to serve files. We also can serve things from the code itself. For instance, in this case, if they request the root path and you don't have anything, you just send something here. If you omit this, it's going to try to search for the index HTML. But if you want to have special case, in case that he requests something, go and do something, you can put it here. I'm going to comment this one because maybe it will be easy if instead of having a foo, let's make an index. So index.html. Okay, so here we can have an HTML file that has a body that says my site. Okay, so we know that we can fetch this file very easily if you go here and type index.html, my site. But also, if you don't specify anything, also it's going to serve this file. That's cool. So you don't have to do anything. That's nice, because by default, if it searches that there's a file with that name, it's going to go skip this and go to the file. And the other nice thing is that you can have special cases like here, where if you type some specific address, like if I type news, it says here, news, it's going to send this hello world from news. Okay, sorry, I modified the code, but I didn't re-execute the code, so I'm going to stop it and launch it again, because this is a modification of the code that implies reload. So if you type news, it says this. And this is helpful because sometimes you can have parts of your code, so some addresses that are special cases, and you can use those addresses to retrieve some data to your JavaScript applications on the client side. In case, for instance, you want to a list of users, a list of rooms, as we were doing on the previous assignment, we can use this kind of approach. Also, if you wanted to, I don't know, send some sort of file when they type something specific, you also can do it like this. Okay, and that's it. That's a regular Express application where you have both both ways of working with HTTP request. You can have the classical one where there is a request, you just serve the file, but there's also the special one when you have a HTTP request, you can say, hey, I want to execute this code to do something nice and then retrieve it. For instance, imagine I wanted to do something like this. I don't know. I have an empty string. Okay. By the way, there's two options here. Why is hold us in nose? I guess if there's many rules and some rules are overlaps, I think that it resolves the first one. So because this one already resolved it, it didn't resolve this one. Okay. So what I want to say, if you can have, I don't know, so like, sorry, for loop here as an example, and is going to add hello to the previous string, and then it is going to send this. Well, sorry, it was str. No, I don't know what source here. Okay, so when somebody type news, it's going to execute this code, generate a long string, and send it. Okay, so now I can close it, launch it again, and if I reload, you see hello 100 times. Okay, so it's nice because in this case I'm doing something silly, but in the future you may here access databases, retrieve data, check data that you have in other places, etc. Okay, so it's always cool to be able to connect your code, your system, with the HTTP request from the other side. Okay, so that's all about HTTP request. Okay, I wanted just to add a final thing. Remember that because when you are in the website in this, let's go back to the index one. Let's remove this news. So this is my site. Because this is your site, I have the index here, my site. I can have here maybe, I don't know, some script. And in this script, I want to do something like, I want to fetch all the news I have in my application. Imagine that my application, by any reasons, there is an array here of news. Okay, and let's populate this news with something. So imagine I have a new here that says title, sorry, something bad. Okay, and maybe I can have another one here that's something good. Okay, so I have on this array 2 news. Okay, and I want that if you want the news, I want to send you all the news. So what I'm going to do is, if you ask me for the news, I'm going to take this news object and I'm going to send it. The problem is that this function send needs to send only strings, and news is not a string. News is currently an array. So if you have data and you want to send it, if that data can be stringified, because it's a simple data, in this case it's just a simple array with objects, there's nothing strange, you can stringify it and send it back. Okay, so now if in any moment somebody wants to know the news, you type news, sorry, I have to stop the application and launch it again, and if I reload, you see the news here. Why I did this is because I can go to the application that we were running, like, this is the old one, I can go back to this one. Okay, and maybe I want to make a JavaScript in my application here that says, hey, when you load the application, I want to show the news on the website. So imagine I have here like a div that says ide equal news. Okay, so what can I do? First, what I can do is I need the news, so I can fetch it. Remember that this JavaScript is going to be executed from the client. So I'm going to say, hey, I want to fetch what? I need to fetch, I could type here the full address, but if you type only one string, it's going to attach this string to the current address. And because the current address is this, is going to go to /news. So I want to go to news, and I want to await for this data to arrive. And once I have this data, by the way, I want to, I don't know, I console log this data to be sure that this works. I'm going to save it. I don't have to execute because I didn't modify the server now. I reload it, but if I open the console, let's go back here. I was only validating async function. Yeah, I was expecting that, sorry. So you're gonna type await inside a function if it's not a function. So let's make a function here. Let's call it init. And you have to type this function is async to say that this function is not going to be executed from the beginning at the end directly, but it could be stop it, go back later. And then I have to call this function. So let's call this function init. Okay, so reload again, and it works, and I get a response. Okay, but the problem is that the response doesn't contain the data. I want to have the data here, and if I say to JSON, I think I can do it. Let me see if it works. Not sure. If I go data JSON, I reload again. You can see I get a promise, and the promise has the data here. So this returns a promise, and I have to solve it. Anyway, I can do something like this. Then it goes to a JSON, and that's it. I know this is strange because this fetch the HTTP request, but to get the data, you have to call another function to transfer the data to the format that you want. If it's text, you type text. If it's JSON, you put JSON. By the way, this syntax is on the slides. It's the classical arrow functions, the same as putting function here, but it's a little bit shorter. Okay, so by doing now, data will contain the data in JSON format. So let's see if it's true. I reload, and I can see now in the console I have both news. Okay, so that's cool because now instead of console log, I can do an ln. Okay, like I don't know, a div, whatever you want. You can put, sorry, for every element data, you can say, I can iterate through this array, and for every new I have, I can news, because news is a reserved word in JavaScript and many other languages. I'm going to say this lm inner text is going to be the news.title, because I don't have anything else, and then I'm going to attach it to the news container. Okay, append child lm, and by doing so, if I reload my application, boom, I have a website that shows me the news, and the news comes from the backend. And that's super cool because maybe I can have options to add more news. Imagine if I wanted to add another new, I can have something here on my application that says, hey, if you want to add a new, like new, add new, then if you send add news, I'm going to send here, okay, for now, then maybe there's a way you can send me news and I can store them on the server. Okay. For that, I need to access the parameters of this, because remember that you can send extra information with the requests. So if in this case you want to add extra info, I can type here add new. No, it's the name I put, add new, and then with the question mark you can type any parameter. For instance, title equal foo. Okay, this will call add new. It will call this function here, but I need to get this parameter here. I don't remember now the syntax, by the way, to get the parameters from Express. 1 second. Yes, this one here. So URL info.query. So if I type here this goes, it uses this other library URL, but this library is not installed here. Sorry, I have to install this library and I didn't put it here. 1 second. Well, I will install it. It's this library here. So now I can call URL, and it's all the addresses here, and it's going to extract from the address all the parameters. And in these parameters, the parameters are going to be here in query. So I can get, in this case, title, and this is going to be the title of the new, if everything went well. Okay, so now I have the title. Maybe I can go to my news and add a new. Okay, this is kind of funny that this new all the time. and say the title. Okay. So now if somebody sends me a new, I'm going to check if there is a title, and if there is a title, because maybe there's not a title, I'm going to go to this container news and push a new, okay, with this title, okay, and send okay in case that you did it. So let's save it. Let's stop the application, run it again, and go to my code. Okay, to the application, launch it again. There's only 2 news, but if I go here and type this new add new title foo and press enter, we see okay, which is a good signal. It executed the code. And if we go back and reload, we can see that they have a new. So we can add news here like blah, 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 press enter, and reload, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So now we have a system that people can send news and we can show it. But it has a very obvious flaw. I don't know if anybody wants to tell me what's the big flaw of this approach, that people can send me news and I can store it on the server and they can retrieve it. And if we wanted to go to production and say, okay, we have a big application that people can send any kind of information and we can have it here, what will be the main problem that they will see on this application? You can type it in the chat if you can try to see or try to suggest what's the main problem of this kind of approach. Currently, as we have it now, this tiny application that people can send their own messages. No, yes, anybody there? I was expecting a little more interaction. Come on. You can see the code here. You send a message. It's stored in this array here. And imagine I run this application for 1 month and I have a lot of messages. What problem will maybe face if I'm not smart enough? What's the common error that I can see if I just use this application to people to send messages and see those messages? Memory, yes, but I mean, data always memory. I mean, if you want to store like 1 million messages, you're always going to use a lot of memory. That's not a problem. Code injection, no, because I never execute any code here. Code injection will be if anybody send me a JavaScript text in this here, and they put some code here, because that code will go to my application, but it won't never go because I was aware of that. I put inner text. So if instead of inner text I put inner HTML, that would be a problem because there could be it's something more simple. What I'm talking about is persistence. If I do this, my messages are not going to last very long. When they're going to last until what? Imagine I have been running this application for 1 day. I have hundreds of messages, and what could happen? What bad thing could happen if I'm with this current approach? No ideas? Okay, let's do it then so you can see it. What happens if I Control Z now and launch it again? What will happen? If I go here, no data, I reload, the data is missing, it's destroyed. Why? The obvious thing, because I was using the RAM memory to store the data. Here, all the news were in this array, and this array is not a database. So this array only exists as long as my application is executing. When the application closes, boom, all the data disappears. So that's why we don't use the memory for things that has to stay forever or until we want it to be destroyed. We use the RAM only for temporal things that we know that if we lose them, it's okay, because applications can close in any moment, and if they close, all the data that you have in the application disappears, okay? So this case implies that if we wanted to make something more usable, what we will do is try to connect the data with some sort of persistent system, something that we don't have now because we are just using the RAM. But it depends. I mean, if data can be something that you want to use it and throw it away, it's okay to use the RAM. It's okay to use arrays inside your JavaScript code. But if some data it's sensible to that, if you lose it, you say, damn it, the person is going to be pissed off because I lose this data, then maybe you should be thinking about having some persistent system. Okay? Anyway, we will see it later if we have some time today. But the next thing I want to talk is WebSockets. Okay, so now we have a way to. By the way, I didn't say it, but if you wanted to send data from the client, we can also add that feature because why not? We have doing this for now. So imagine I want to have also an input. Okay, and every time the user, input. So by doing this, now my precious website has this text where I can type, and I can press enter. It doesn't do anything, obviously, but if we add the thing we did the other day, which was like in document query selector, I can use the dollar, by the way, no? Dollar ID, sorry, or dollar, let me see, I'm not sure if I can use the dollar command, because the other day I discovered that you can use it. If I type H1 here, it works. Yes, it does. Okay, I'm going to use that instead. So it looks a little bit faster. So if I want to go to this input, I can type here input, and then I want to add the event listener. The same thing we did the other day on the key down. So if the user types a key, I want to the thing we did the other day, which is maybe I want to send a message. Send news. Okay, now we're going to call it send news, which is more interesting. How can we send news? For now, let's finish this. If key code is equal to 13, I think it's the enter, then it's going to call send news, and it's going to pass the content of this one, and also it's going to take the value and equal to empty. That's it. With this, I can, every time you press intro, it's going to call send news, and for now, I can show it to you that it works by typing the text on the console. So if I reload, type here something and press intro, it didn't work, dollar is not defined. Okay, that's interesting. So dollar, I don't know why dollar was working the other day. This very, sometimes it works, it doesn't know. I think it's because there's some library probably in my system that it's overriding it. I don't know. So I type something here, press enter, and it's still not working. So it's not working because, let's go to the sources. The key code wasn't 13 probably. So let's play. I'm here and press enter, and the key code is 13. So why it's not working? I go here, send this value, and this is oh damn it, no. Yes, this error, the one I was talking the other day for an hour, you shouldn't use, I want to use this, so I cannot do this. I have to type function, I cannot use the arrow because the arrow replaces the this, and I'm using the this here, so I'm silly. Okay, so let's go back again, type something, press enter, you can see the message appears here, so it's nice, it means that the message is being received on this function, and now I want to send that message to the server. And we have an address that we can use to send that message to the server. Remember that if we do fetch, and we specify here any address, so fetch in here new, add new, it was called, no, I think it was called add new. So add new. So now we have a way to send the message here, and there's two ways to add parameters. We can use the same approach as doing this title equal and then appending text, which is not perfect, but we can do that. And then when this function resolves, then maybe we want to do something like refresh the text, because I can do it like this. I can use it. Let's see if it works. So I'm here and I can type hello, press intro, and it has sent the message, but I don't see it. If I reload, you will see that the message is on the server. That's nice. Blah, blah, press intro, goes to the server. I don't see it, but it's there. I can type several messages. And if I reload, it's going to reload the messages. So maybe the function I was calling here, which is to get all the news, I can remove it from here and call it, I don't know, refresh, because it's a function that refreshes. Okay, so it's going to search for some data and refresh the content. And because I don't want, if every time I call the function it's going to add more elements, it's going to put them below the previous ones. So what I'm going to do is take the container, put it here. Okay, and first thing I'm going to do is clean the container. So say the content of this is nothing. That means that I clean the content every time I refresh. So now when the application launches, I can refresh. By the way, this function doesn't have to be async, because now I'm not using await. Only the function that contains the word await has to be asynchronous. So I can see if it works. I reload. I have the messages. That's nice. And as you can see, I'm modifying this JavaScript, and I'm never relaunching the application. The reason why I'm not relaunching the application is because I'm not changing the code that is executed on the server. The server is doing exactly the same. It's just sending different files when I modify them, but the code is exactly the same. Other thing will be if I modify this file, because then I have to stop the application because this is the code of the server and run it again. Okay, so now I can do something like when you send the message, when you receive it, call refresh. Okay, so by doing this, if I reload here and type blah blah blah, you can see the message appears instantly, and I'm not adding it here. It's just that every time I send a message, I type a message, is refreshing the list, and because the message is already on the server, I get it back to me. So it's like making a full circle, the message every time. So it's nice. I have implemented a very simple chat. The only thing, obviously, this is not a chat, because if somebody opens another window and we put it side by side, like here, if I type here, the other person won't be seeing it because we are using HTTP, and the problem we face with this is that unless the other person types something here, then he will see all the previous messages. This is the bad thing, and we can fix this adding some sort of polling every 3 seconds, reloading, refreshing, but we don't want to do that. I just want to show you how we can connect our server with our client and send messages, store the messages, receive the messages, and stuff like that. Okay, cool. So next thing I want to show you is that we can also add a WebSocket server on top of Express. Here's an example of how you can make a WebSocket server alone without Express, but because we have Express already running, let's take advantage of that and add on top of that our own Express WebSocket. And this is an example, very simple to use. I'm going to try it. Maybe it doesn't work, or maybe it works, I don't know. So it's a little bit different. 1 second, I have an example I did the last week that I think is a little bit more simple than that. 1 second. Yes, this file here. I will put the link. I will put a link on the somewhere because it's an example I did yesterday that I think is much simpler to use Express.js. But the problem is this use the import thing, which is the new version, but anyway, I'm going to try to use it without the import, and if it doesn't work, it's okay. So that means in the server, maybe instead of call it main.js, you can call it server. Maybe it's more useful. I'm going to also import this Express. I cannot use it. Well, I'm going to try to use it like this. It's going to crash now. I know it's going to crash, but I have to try it. So it's going to tell me that this is not a module, so you cannot use import. I know. So let's make Express.js is equal to require, and I'm going to require this Express.ws. Okay, let's load. And you can see also this is nice Visual Studio Code. You can see that these variables have different color. This one is bright and this one is dark. And variables are dark when Visual Studio sees that you're not using them. So for instance, if I define this variable foo equal 1, he sees that I'm not using it, so it's dark. But if I use it now, like console log foo, now it brights again because it sees that you're using it. That's very nice because if you create variables, at least it tells you if you're using them or not. So I save it. I don't need this variable now. Save it, go back, reload it, and there's the error is that he cannot find the Express module. No problem. Then I can install it. I'm going to go here and say npm install express ws, and everything goes well. Boom. Okay, it say I don't have access to this folder because probably, yeah. Oh, okay. I did previously when I installed it, I used the sudo, and now this folder is only the root can access this folder. Okay, and this is kind of error that you will see sometimes, that you try to do something and the system doesn't allow you because you don't have rights. I would say permission denied. When you have that, it's because your username, which currently is Tamat, don't have access to this folder, which is by the root. It's by the root because I typed sudo before when I created this, when I launched the command to do this. If you type sudo when you launch a command, you are a root. And because you're a root, anything you create is going to be created as a root. And because of that, you won't have access. But I can say sudo because I'm going to fake I'm the root. So I'm going to put it here again. You can see it. I have this folder, which is not mine, and I want it to become mine. I can type sudo in my case and say, hey, I want to the ownership of this file, ch own is to define the ownership. I want to say the ownership of this file should be Tamat. The first Tamat is the user, and the second Tamat is the group. Anyway, and then which one? And you say node modules. Okay. And I also want to make it recursive. So not only this folder, but also the folders inside the folders. If I do this, it's going to say, okay, are you the root? Yes, I am the root. And if everything went well, you can see that this folder now it's mine. Okay, so that means that if I go to npm install again, it will allow me to do it. So writes are usually a problem when you work in Linux, because depending on what you do, you may have folders that are you have rights to do things on that, and maybe you don't have rights. Also remember that these things here that define what can you do, what can the people in your group do, and what can everybody do. And here, for instance, this main, I'm able to read and write it. People in my group are able to read it, and people who is not in my group, so everybody on the system can read it also. But I can modify this so other people can write it also. And this is important because sometimes you launch some processes on the system, and they are not you, because the processes are going to be launched by some subsystem that they have a different user, and they may not have access to the file because this is not accessible to write or read. Then you have to modify the privileges. Okay, cool. So this being fixed, if I launch again my server, okay, it works, nice. So the library is found. So next step is to go back to this code here and try to see what it does. Mainly, to create application, it uses this syntax. We are going to copy it here. So instead of doing express, as I was doing before, it does this, express. So it creates an express, and it creates an express WS, passing the express application, and then put it back. I know it's kind of a strange syntax, but that's the way they wanted to do. So the rest should remain exactly the same. If I launch the application now and go here again to my site, it works. Okay, so I haven't destroyed anything. That's good signal. Okay, but the interesting thing is I can have now this part here. And I'm going to add it here. I don't know if I have to add anything else. No, that's the only thing I need. So I'm going to copy this one, and I'm going to put it in my project. So let's put it here, maybe. I don't know. So it says that if somebody tries to connect through WebSocket, then I will tell you that somebody connected. It's going to call this is callback when somebody tries to connect, and it's going to tell you this callback. And also, if somebody sends a message, I will show it here. Cool. Let's try to see if that's true. I'm going to stop the application, launch it again. No errors, maybe. If I want to connect, let's try to make a code here to try to connect to this WebSocket. So let's make a function here. Function. Nah, I'm going to put it here. So I'm going to connect to new WebSocket and to the same website. I don't think I have to specify anything. I think I can do it like this because it's listening on the same port as the web server. You don't have to specify anything. The web server, by the way, sorry, is in the port 3000. So maybe I should specify something like. Well, I'm going to try this. I don't think I have to specify now because if you don't specify now, it's going to use the same address where you are now, and this is the address where I am now, localhost 3000. It will assume that this is the address where the WebSocket is. Okay, so let's try it, and to see if I connect it, I'm going to have here on open. So I can have here the classical console log connected, on close, disconnected, and if I receive a message, I don't know, show the message maybe. Show on the console the message. I'm going to put these characters so I can see. Okay, and that's mostly it. And now every time I type something, not only I'm going to send it to the news, I also going to, if the socket is open, which usually is open, I'm going to send a message, and I'm going to send the value, so this value. So every time I type something and press enter, I'm going to send the message through the socket to the server. Okay, and if everything went well, this message will receive it on this function here. And so let's see if it works. So for this, I need to stop the application, launch it again. Nothing problematic here. And now I'm going to reload my website. And let's open the console because there was an error. The URL is invalid. Okay, I was expecting that, but I wanted to try it anyway. So the thing is that I should put something here. And because I don't know the address, something you can do is in any website, when you are on a website, if there's a variable on here that's called location, and it contains all the information about the website where you are right now. So I'm going to go to location host. Okay, so I'm going to go here, say location host. But because this is supposed to be a WebSocket, I'm going to say that use the WebSocket protocol. So this is a WebSocket connection, and this is the same machine where I'm now. So it should be the same. I could hard code here localhost 2.3000, but then if I take this code and put it in some other server, it won't work because when I access it through ECV/ethic, then the address will be different. It will be localhost. So you never put localhost in any of your code ever, because then if you move it to another machine, it won't work. Okay, so save it here, launch the client. I don't have to stop the server. I can launch the application, and first it's connected. That's cool. And to see if it works, I have here my terminal. I'm going to put it in the side of the screen, and I'm going to put this on the other side. You can see somebody connected. That's nice. And if I type something here, you can see how I'm receiving messages from the other side. So this is the server, this is the client, and I'm sending messages and I'm receiving them on the other side. That's cool. So it would be nice to check that this works not only locally on my machine, but it also works remotely on the other machine. Okay, but there is a tiny problem because the UPF has a very strict firewall blocking the connection. So let's see if I can make it work. Okay, I want to see if I can make this application work on the ECV machine. Remember that we are working on my computer now. Okay, so I'm going to send this code to that machine. To sending code, usually we use FileZilla, which is this application that allows you to connect to any server. Oops. So I'm going to say, for the first time that you use this application, you click here, you go to new place, you type the name of the place, ECV for instance. I know ECV already exists. Okay, ECV test, so you can see it. Then you say that the connection is an SFTP, the server address is this address, upf.edu, this is the name of the machine, and then my username. Okay, and I'm going to always ask for the password. So now I have it, it's here. If I connect, it says what's my password, I type my password, and boom, I'm connected. Okay, so I want to send this application I'm running here, my localhost, to this machine. So what I'm going to do is I can do it from here, but I'm going to start creating folders from, well, I can do it from here. So I'm going to go, I don't know, there's so many junk here, test maybe, also test is very full of old things. I'm going to rename this to renombrar to an old 2, because every year I create a new test thing. So I'm going to create here a new folder, create a directory, test ECV. I know it's not very simple. I have a folder here, and we can, well, now I have created this folder. It would be nice to see this folder exist, so I can go here. Remember, I have my command ECV to connect to the ECV server because I created the alias in the bash RC before, and now I can go here and check if it's true. If I go here, you will see that now I have the TS ECV folder, and if I enter here, you can see that it's empty. So I'm going to go to this folder, and now I'm going to search the code I was working before. This code, this folder here, I'm going to find the folder. I don't know if I can go directly to the revert in Explorer. Yeah, that's nice. So I have here my folder with the code, with this. This is the public, by the way, and this is the other one. I'm going to copy it. I'm not going to copy the node modules because the node modules, you need it. You will install them on the other machine. So I'm going to go here, go to my folder, and drag the files here. And if everything goes well, it's going to upload the files, and I can check that it works because if I go here and type ls now, you will see that the files are here. Cool. Then I'm now not in my machine, I'm on the other machine. I want to see if my application works, and obviously it won't work for many reasons, but the first one is because I don't have this library installed. Remember that every time you type do npm install, it's going to edit the package JSON to say which dependencies this project has. And you can see that this project has 2 dependencies, Express and Express WS. So that's nice because that means that instead of having to install manually everything, I can type npm install, and this will go to the package JSON, and if there is any dependencies there that is not installed, it will install them. So let's try this. So it's going to install Express and Express WS. And just by doing this, if I double now show the node modules, you will see node modules contains a lot of libraries, but especially I care about Express WS, which is here. So cool, it works. So now the last part is I can launch the application, and it's working. It's listening in port 3000. The problem now is if I try to make this application, try to access this application from here, and I type ECV, ethic, blah, 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 upf.edu, this is the address of the machine. It's no longer localhost because it's in another machine. But if I want to go to the port 3000 and press enter, probably it won't work. So you still see the site because this is the old site, but you can see here it's still trying to load it. And it's trying to load it, trying to load it, trying to load it, and at the end it will say that he couldn't find the website. And the reason is because the UPF is blocking any connection to port 3000, because there's two rules that they enforce. First, that the connection has to be encrypted, and my connection is not encrypted because we are using regular HTTP, not HTTPS, and we are using WS and not WSS, which is the secure versions. So, and if we wanted to use them, we would need to install the certificates of the UPF, but that's super secure. I should never have the certificates because that would be very dangerous if I have them. So we have a problem here. And after thinking about a lot, I discovered there is a way I can bypass this problem, which is the next one. So we have your computer at home, and you from your browser, and your browser you want to connect to the UPF, okay? A server I have on the UPF. The problem is that here there is a firewall that blocks anything, but remember that if I go here, it works. So this works. And also this connection, by the way, is secure. If I go here, it says this connection is secure. I don't know why it doesn't say it. Yes, you can see here HTTPS. So how is that this is secure if I don't have the keys? Because the UPF does something, is like if the connection is in the port 80, or the, sorry, not the port 80, the 431, I think is the SSL port. I never remember what's the port of SSL. HTTPS default port is 443, sorry. 443, not this one. Okay, if it's 443, what they're going to do is they're going to stop the HTTP. They will request as a HTTPS connection. They will check that everything works well, and if it works well, it will send the connection to the machine, but as an HTTP connection, regular HTTP. So the school is going to decrypt on the outside of my server, so I don't have to care about encryption and decryption on the UPF. But if I open another port, if it's not the port 443, it's not going to work. They are not going to do it. So after thinking about that a lot, I discovered there is a hack you can do, which is because you can connect through the port 443. What you're going to do is when you want to connect to this port here, you're going to connect 443. Okay, this is the Apache. Okay, the 443 on my machine is where Apache is stored. And you can configure Apache and say, hey, if somebody asks for this path, instead of going to that folder on the machine, try to redirect the connection to one specific port. Okay, this is called a proxy or an alias. So what I'm saying in my Apache is if somebody puts something like /ws, sorry, if you put, I think it's node, maybe node / and here the number of the port that you want, like 3000, then I'm going to, instead of connecting to a folder called node 3000, I'm going to understand that this means that you want to go to this port over here. I did this on the configuration of Apache, kind of annoying, but I had to do it, and I can show it to you if you want to see it. Oh, by the way, the connection lost. What's going on? I was connected through Windows Linux. That's weird. Sometimes it happens that you will see that you lose connection. When this happens because one of the disconnected and the other didn't get notified that he disconnected. So with this happens, it means that, well, usually you have to close the connection. But it's weird that this happens because it usually doesn't happen. So anyway, I'm going to go back to my connection. So okay. So I wanted to show you. I need to make this a little bit. Is that in this machine I can go to the Apache here, and there is a file sites available. and here is the file conf. And if I edit this file, you will see all this code here, which is very annoying. But what this code is saying is, hey, if somebody connects to /node/9008, then you redirect to the same machine. This is localhost, by the way. The 127.0.0.1 is the same as localhost, to the same port. And because of that, I had to do it manually. This is not automatic. That means that now we can try to see if it works. Okay, it's a little bit, it doesn't work all the time, so it's a little bit tricky, but let's try to make it work. So what I'm going to do now is, 1 second, I'm going to go to my folder test ECV, okay, where I had this application, okay, and I'm going to launch it, but because I don't want to use the port 3000, I'm going to move it to another port. So instead of using 3000, I'm going to use the port 9000. 9002, by the way. Why 9002? Because I think 9000 and 1, they are already in use by other things. So I save it. Okay, and this is going to be a problem on the WebSocket, but we will fix that later. So I launch the application. It's launched in this port 9002. As I said, if I put here now 9002, it won't work because they are closing. But I can do this hack. I type /node/9002/ press intro, and the website works. Okay. I know it's a little bit convoluted, but because I'm trying to jump over the firewall of the UPF. You don't have to do this when you have your own servers because you can control the firewall, but in the UPF I cannot do it. So I have to do this. It works, but there's another problem now. You will see that the connection to the WebSocket won't work. Also, by the way, it's HTTPS. Yes. So the WebSocket didn't work, and we can try to fix that. The reason why the WebSocket didn't work, by the way, is because, sorry, not here, the public index. The reason we didn't work is when I was connected to WS, and in this case should be WSS because it's secure. And also this thing I was doing location host, in this case it doesn't apply because it's kind of a strange server. So in this case it's ECV ethic upf.edu node 9002 /WS because it's a WebSocket / okay. I know it's kind of annoying. So keep in mind, it has to, if the connection is for a WebSocket, you have to type WS at the end. And also very important, the last slash. If you forget the last slash, it doesn't work. Why? I don't know. This Apache is a little bit tricky like that. So now I can save the file, and if launch it again. So I'm on the server, so let's launch it again. Everything works well. I reload, and if everything goes well, boom, it works. I'm connected. So now I can type something here, blah, 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 and you can see how I'm receiving the message on another machine. That's no longer my machine. That's another machine that is on the UPF. Okay, cool. I have made a full application and making the client side, which is this HTML here, and I've done the server side, which is that other application is running here. And when you know how to make the client side and you know how to make the server side, is what they call you a full stack developer, because you control the full stack from the very top to the very bottom. Okay, so now you know what's a full stack developer. With this in mind, you can start working on the second assignment. The second assignment is that you should remove all the code from CD server from your chat, the chat we did on the first assignment. You should remove every single line of CD server, and now you should create your own server application from scratch. And that means that you should now on the client side connect to your server application using a WebSocket, and then you can send messages through the WebSocket, and you can receive messages from the WebSocket and do whatever you want to make your own chat works. Okay, the idea is not to keep the same structure as the second assignment, in the sense that you have rooms and the user has an ID, blah blah blah. I mean, you can do it, but I'm not forcing you to use exactly the same interface. You can create your own protocol, you can use your own functions. The idea is that you should, for this week, not at the end of the second assignment, because at the end of the second assignment you will have to do much more things. For this week, you should be able to remove all the code of CD server, create your own server, and connect to your own server from your chat application. Okay? Once you do that, for now you can try it locally on your computer to see if you can connect from your chat application to your own local application and do all the actions that you were doing before. And next week I will also add more complexity, because then you will have to use databases to store things like the user's login and password. And on the third week we will add even a new visual thing where people will be able to see each other when they are chatting. Okay. And that's it. It's still 8 minutes left, so I can clean up a little bit this code. Something to keep in mind now is that because now I have the code, I modify it here, but I still have the code here. So if I go to main, this is the old code. Sorry, I was public here. This is the old code. But on the server I have the new code, and this is very common when you have code in both sides. So for these things, there's two things you can do. One is every time you modify the code on here, you have to have the FileZilla open, take the file, drag it here, and upload it again. So if you modify, in this case, I have to do the opposite because I modified this file here on the public, the index. So in this case, I'm going to go to here. Come on, it has to connect. Kind of annoying. This is in the case that you wanted to test it remotely. First, you always develop applications locally because it's faster, you don't have to worry. But then when you are working locally, there's the step where you have to test it remotely. So here, for instance, I can take this file, which I edited remotely, remember, and I can drag it here, and it will overwrite it if everything went well. No, gonna be accessed for import. Oh, okay, anyway, it doesn't like to import it that way, so I'm going to do it manually. So I'm going to go to the folder here, go to the public, and take the file from the server here and drag it here, and that's it. And by doing so, you can see how if everything goes well, it should change the file. It didn't. Sorry, yes, because FileZilla tells me this file is already existing. Do you want to overwrite it? I say yes. Sorry, I forgot that. And now you can see how my code changed. The problem now is that if I execute this code locally, it won't work because locally this is not the server. So I don't know, maybe you want to have some sort of control to see if you're working locally or remotely when you execute this application. There are ways to pass parameters, remember, to the application. So maybe you can have a parameter, and also you can check if this is running locally or not. If you check the location host, it will tell you if it's local host, then you know it's local. So maybe you can have an if here that says if you're local host, do this address. If you are not local host, use this other address. Yeah, so you can execute the same code from server and the client. Okay. So you don't have to be constantly modifying lines all the time. And the other thing I wanted to show you, one second. There was yes. The other way to solve this problem, instead of having to go to FileZilla and upload files all the time, you can also edit files remotely as using the extension I was telling you before, which I don't have it here. Maybe next week I will let you know how you can do that. But there are extensions to do that, extensions that allow you to connect this file folder to a remote SH folder. Or the other, which is much simpler, and I think that you may want to use that one, is you have a GitHub account, no? Then you just upload the code to the GitHub account. In any moment, when you modify locally the code, at the end, if you have GitHub, here it will appear that this folder has a Git account, and then you can click a button and say send it to Git. So it will send the code from local to Git, and then on the other side, to update the code, you only have to do git pull, and it will bring the code from the repository. And this is safer. And also, if you work with several people, it's nice because it means that when you git pull, it will take the code from different users and merge it and everything. And it's very, very handy to work this way because then you can have the code locally and remote and connected very easily in any moment. Okay, so I would recommend you to use Git if you can. Otherwise, I would also show you how to do the trick with the Visual Studio Code to edit files remotely if you want to. Although last year it was a horrible experience with people doing that, so maybe this year is not the best solution. Okay, and I think that's it for today. I think it's plain enough. I'm going to just go through the slides a little bit just to be sure that I don't forget any key points here. So as I was doing yesterday, another thing I forgot to say is about the thing about launching the application. I'll leave it here. So now I can launch this application. So you can see that now if I go to here and I reload, it doesn't exist because the application is closed. So I'm going to launch the application again. Now I'll launch it and now it works. Super cool. But if I leave the session, I close it, close the application and reload again, Oh, it's gone again. So this is a common error that any application you create, it has to stay alive as much as possible. So how can we do that? 1 second, I log in to the server again. Okay, so one thing you can do is I'm going to go to the test ECV application, and I'm not going to launch it directly from this terminal now. I'm going to create a secondary terminal, as I was doing yesterday, and I'm going to call this terminal, I don't know, my server. Okay, now I have this other terminal, and I can launch my application from here. Now the application is launched, and I can exit without closing this terminal. I'm going to just detach it. The name is detaching because the terminal is going to exist, but I'm not going to be connected to that. So to do that is Control A. Control A is for sending messages to screen. The command I launched is Control A, and then the next command I want to run is D for detach. So now I have detached my window, and I can see now that my application, my server is running, and if I exit, it's still running. Okay, that's nice. So my application runs. And as you can see, if I remember that every time I was typing here, it was sending a message through the WebSocket. So if I go back again, let's go back to the server. I'm going to use now the other one, the Windows Linux thingy, and I'm going to go to ECV. I'm going to type my password, and now inside I'm going to, you can go to test 20 folder, but what I want to do is if you type screen ls, I think you see all these sessions, and here we can see that my server is there, and if you want to reattach it, you say R of reattach, and the name is my server. And you can see not only reattach the session, also you can see all the messages, the outputs of the console, they are still here. So this is nice because you can see there was an error in the past, you can check it. Okay, and in the moment, remember Control A, D, you leave the screen is there forever. Okay, super useful. You can launch applications, leave it there, exit, and they will be running. And I will recommend you when you create your session, put your username, or I will give you the username during this week. Okay, when I send you the email of how you can access this machine. Okay, so there is very important how to launch your application and leave it running as long as possible. And for databases, we will see that probably next week. We're going to focus a little bit more on data and stuff. For now, remember the objective for this week, for the next Monday, is that you are able to replace all the code of City Server, and so your application runs using only your own backend. Okay, so you work on client, and then I will give you information about that. And also remember that you can debug from Chrome, as I was saying yesterday. Like I can, because I have still 1 minute, I can try to show you this to see that it's very handy to use this feature. So remember, I have the application. I'm going to execute the application local, not the server one, because the server one. 1 second. ECV. Yes, this is the one we were editing before, and I have it in my code. This is the one I have here. Remember, I need to execute locally, so for now I'm going to put here maybe the address, something like this, the URL. So I'm going to say URL equal to WS plus location host, it was, I think. So if I want to connect to other one, I can just uncomment this line. I think it's going to be easier. So now I can go to here and launch my application. Whoa, load. Okay, my application is running on port 3000. And why 3000? I didn't change it to 9000 before. I only downloaded the other file. I did not change. Well, anyway, it was 9002. I'm going to put here 9002. So I'm also on the other side. So I launch the application 9002. I can open it here, my application here. And what I wanted to show you how I can debug this application running. So what I'm going to do is, if you want to debug, you have to launch the application saying that you want to debug. To that, you have to say you want to be able to inspect this application. Okay, you have the command, by the way, here, so it's easy to remember. And then you have to specify in which port you want to be. In this case, is the 992, and from IP 000 means any IP. So I'm going to copy this part here. I'm going to put it here, and if I execute again, it didn't work. Sorry, I think I have to put it before the name of the file, main.js. Okay, now it says that the debugger is listening. Okay, and remember the next step, you should go to your Chrome, open Chrome, and type Chrome inspect. Okay, and it would take some time to detect it if you are working locally. If you're not working locally, you're working remotely, then you can add, you can here open dedicated dev tools for Node, yes, and you can specify to which server you want to connect. But now you can see he will automatically detect it if you're running it locally, and it says there's somebody listening, a main.js listening here. Do you want to inspect? And I say yes. And now this window is totally connected to that application. So that's nice because that means that that works to the source code. Nah, I don't want to do that. And what I wanted to do is see the code. And I don't know why I cannot see the code from here. But I can, yes, you can see that if you click sometimes it appears here, which I don't know why it doesn't appear before. That's something is strange, but I have to investigate. Anyway, you can see that you have access to the code. Okay, so for instance, it can have something like if I click refresh, remember that when you were refreshing, when you what was the news here? This was called every time we wanted to refresh the content of this thing. So if I type anything and press enter, it's going to stop here because there is a request from the client to the news to get the last news. So I can see here the news contains this news, and now I have a new the A because I type 8 enter, so I receive it from this other code before this one. So here I can stop it, and as I said, the next thing here is that you can check any variable that you have here. For instance, I can check global variables, and well, there's a lot of global variables here, but if I go to news, probably here, no, it's not here, sorry, it's not the global, it's the closure, sorry, yes. In the closure you have news. I can open, I can see the news here, which is super nice. I can even edit it if I wanted to. I can click on this something bad and it says blah blah blah. I don't know why it didn't change. Sorry, I have to put blah blah blah. Yes, sorry. Okay, so you can see you can modify. You even can run code here. If I can go here and say, hey, news, I want to push a new, which is going to be, I don't know, title, Javi was here. Okay, intro. Okay, and you can see that running the code here is nice. And also if you go news, you will see that I have modified this and I have modified this. I can remove the breakpoint, press play again. So now the application runs again and you can see how it was here and blah, blah. Okay, so I was able to modify the code, the data while I was running. And also this is nice to check if the application runs properly. For instance, I want to see when I don't know, when if I add a new here, can I see the parameters to see that everything goes well? Yes, let's try it. I go here and type full. I press enter and I can see that the query, which information contains query, contains only title. Okay, what's the information in info URL? And I can check any variable to see that everything is as it's supposed to be. Okay, so that's super nice because if there's errors on my server, I can debug them. But the problem is that this only works on your localhost because if you try to connect to this application remotely, it won't work because the firewall is going to block it. So that's the bad thing. Okay. Anyway, that was mostly what I wanted to tell you about using the Chrome inspect. And here is an explanation how to use Putty to connect to a remote server. And also there's an explanation around here of how you can send files using FileZilla. Okay. And that's it for today. So remember, you have a goal now for the next week, which is trying to put everything on the server so your application works perfectly as it was working before you did with the city server. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you very much. Not many questions, not many people also. I hope everything is doing well and see you next Monday. Bye.